and welcome to Race to Your Career. In this episode, I'll be joined by two apprentices. One who grew up riding horses and one who had no experience riding horses at all until their training. They'll be depicting their different experiences working in the horse racing industry. So Amelie and Gareth, thank you so much for joining me today. If we can begin the episode by having you explain your current role. Amelie.
Yeah, so I'm a racing groom. I work at Gareth Racing. I'm doing my apprenticeship through the British Racing School at the moment. I'm sort of most of the way through it, and I've just got a few more little bits to do with my apprenticeship. So.
Fantastic. And Gareth?
So I'm actually self-employed now. I ride out for James Ferguson in the mornings. I also work for Arena Racing on their starting stalls, as well as driving some jockeys, trainers, horse boxes, travelling horses to the races, whatever I can throw my hand at, really.
So these names that you're saying, are they trainers?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And now let's go back to when you discovered that you had a love for working with horses. Amelie?
Pretty much as soon as I could pick up a book and ride. I remember I used to have stacks of like horse care books and stuff like that. But my nan had a horse, so I was always sort of involved with that. I've got like a picture of me riding her when I was about 5, I think I was. So yeah, pretty much always.
What was that horse called?
Isha.
Nice. And Gareth, how about you? Did you have a nan horse?
So I actually got into racing for my love of racing as opposed to horses, which is maybe a slightly unconventional route that most people come. I just used to go to the local tracks when I was a young boy, Lingfield, Kempton, Sandown, Epsom, just for a day out for as long as I can remember. And then one day I decided I'm going to be a jockey, and here we are.
So to clarify, back when you were younger, you weren't riding the horses, you were just a spectator, were you?
Absolutely. I never sat on a horse till I was 16. Never had any ponies, didn't do any show jumping, any pony club, nothing like that at all. It was purely having a day out at the races, Derby Day, Saturday nights at Lingfield. And like I said, it just went from there.
So being 16 and making that decision to want to be a jockey, is that unusual?
I was probably the only person in my school that took this path. And like I said, a lot of people come from horsey backgrounds. They have family in it, they're fed into it that way. Whereas I'd had this idea and I decided that's how it was going to be, and that was that. And no one could tell me any different, really. And
if you weren't surrounded by people who were in that field, in that industry, how did you find the opportunities?
Obviously, like most people these days, I came through the racing school. I went through to the National Horse Racing College when I was 16, I think. I'd been out of school maybe 2 weeks. Straight to college and learnt to ride, and the rest is history.
Tell me more about that experience when you first started that course.
Racing school is very good. It's very different. It was very new to me. Obviously, I hadn't really done many days work in my life. I was 16, just finished my exams. It was exciting, I wanted to be there. It was something new. I was out of school, out in the big wide world, doing something that I had a passion for, that I loved, and I just couldn't wait to get going. There's so many people that I met at racing school in 2006 I'm still friends with now, that I've seen all over the world. It was exciting, I mean, in one word.
Thank you, Gareth. And Amelie, when you had your journey, obviously you had that background in horse riding. You loved horses and caring for horses since a young girl. Did you come across people like Gareth who hadn't?
Yeah, there was quite a few people on my British Racing School course. I only did it February of 2021, so not long at all. But yeah, we had, I think it was half of the people on my course of 18 people hadn't actually ridden or touched a horse before. So I think there's a growing majority of people coming into racing that haven't ridden before.
Do you think that's a good thing? Do you learn from those people things that maybe surprised you?
I think that you learn how to be a mentor to them, because if they don't know anything, like how to pick out a horse's feet or how to groom a horse, if you already know what you're doing in that respect, you can sort of help them and show them. And so they sort of help you to learn how to teach people.
Gareth, did you find that people supported you, your fellow students?
Everyone's very supportive at the racing school, whether it's the instructors, whether it's the other students on the course, and you're all chipping together. So if you don't know something, nobody's ever gonna shout at you or laugh at you. They will help you, especially at that level in that scenario and situation. So I never found any problems with that. Anyway, anyone not helping me or not wanting to, bring you forward and help you and get involved.
And Amelie, going back to you, you're currently doing your apprenticeship. How did you find out about your apprenticeship, that it was an opportunity you could do, and how was the application process?
Well, I started off wanting to be a jockey, and then I changed my mind from that, and I decided I wanted to be an equine vet nurse. Then changed my mind from that and went back to horse racing again. And I sort of looked into the whole trainer side of it. And from there, I started looking at going to university. And then I started looking at the British Racing School and realised that that's actually where horse racing starts, is in the racing schools. So National Racing College and the British Racing School. And so it was sort of the natural path to go into that, really.
And what is your apprenticeship called that you're doing?
I think it's in horse care and exercise.
But are there a few apprenticeships to choose from?
No, it's sort of, you go through one, you can do a ridden one or you can do a grounds-based one. So your ridden one is you're learning how to lunge horses and exercise them under saddle. And then your yard-based one, especially at the British Racing School, you'll do extra things on your course. So you do things like tractor driving, lunging, long reining as well, that can help you more on the yard-based sort of side of things.
It's obvious that you always knew which industry you wanted to work in, but sometimes it's really hard to pinpoint what you want to do, and you had that challenge. So what would you say to a young person who's maybe considering a career with horses but unsure as to which route to go down?
Get as much experience as you can in the different fields. I did a lot of work experience going off to school and on the weekends and stuff to veterinary practices, just small animal ones, and I decided that wasn't for me. But I'd been riding since I was about 8 years old, so I'd been going to a riding school, and I used to volunteer there on the weekends when I'd go and ride. So I already knew that I liked working on a yard. And then I went and did a week of work experience with a racehorse trainer in Kent called John Best. That was, I think, what really sort of made me think, this is the right choice for me.
Sometimes people don't always value experiences they don't like, but it helps you decide what you do want to do, and that's what you done.
100%.
How come you wanted to be a jockey, Gareth?
Well, as I said, I just used to go to the races as a day out as a young lad for as long as I can remember. And one day I said, right, I'm going to do that. I decided that's what I wanted to be. It was fun, it was exciting, it was different. Who doesn't love a day at the races? Obviously, it's not quite as glamorous as I first thought it might be, all the time anyway. And like I said, it just went from there, and no one could tell me any different.
So Gareth, tell us about your first role within the racing industry.
My first ever job was as a 16-year-old boy as just yard staff. I did work experience. I had no experience in the industry or with horses at all. And I just started from there, getting a feel for the yard, for the horses, learning how things went, and just built up over time.
It's very apparent there's room to progress. Is that the same for all jobs within this industry, would you say?
I think there's so many different paths in the industry that you could take. I wouldn't even know all of them myself. So it depends, like Amelie was saying, depends what you like, what you don't like. Everybody's different. And obviously now in this day and age, with the social media, there's so many more jobs coming again. Trainers are employing people purely to run their social media and to take photographs, and that wasn't even an option when I was 16. And I know multiple people doing that now. So again, if that was something that interested somebody, not only have they got the racing, but they've got the social media and the production outside of that of things as well. Again, or you can, if you do make it as a jockey, which is probably everyone's first goal, great. And I'm on the stalls, which is great fun. I keep involved. I get to see the horses. I see a lot of my friends that are riding, jockeys, etc. So I'm still involved. I'm still having a lot to do with it from a different standpoint. Obviously, that wasn't my original goal when I decided I was going to go into racing to work on the stalls, but it's where we've ended up, and it's great fun, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's the most important thing, that you're happy doing what you're doing, because we work for a huge chunk of our lives, don't we? So you've got to enjoy what you're doing. Amelie, tell me what a day looks like in your life.
So I normally wake up at about 5 a.m. I get to the yard for about 6 o'clock, maybe just before. I will muck out one in the box, just making the stall nice and clean, giving it fresh water, a little bit of hay, making sure that it's got all of its rugs on neatly. I will then go and get my tack and everything, so my saddle, bridle and all my pads. Take that to the horse that I'm riding. I'll have checked the board. We have like a whiteboard sort of thing with little name tags for all the horses.
Is it a schedule?
Kind of, yeah. So each day it might get moved around. So you have your name and then each of the horses that you're going to be riding for that day. So I take my tack to the first one, tack that up, and then we pull out for about 6:45. I'll ride 2 horses, and then we have breakfast. Ride another 1, 2, 3 at the moment, and then that'll be sort of it for the day. In the morning, so we might have to, finish up putting our tack away or helping finish up the yard or something like that, and then that's it for the morning really. And then I'll go back into evening stables at about 4 o'clock, and that's sort of, we have our own horses, so we'll skip them out, which is just a really light muck out, give them fresh hay and water again, and give them a groom as well.
Wow, it's something you've got to be dedicated to do, isn't it?
Massively. Yeah.
And this is all weathers all year round?
Yeah, so, today it's been really foggy, really misty. It's been -5 degrees yesterday, so it really is all weathers.
What about holidays? If people, and this is important because people who are considering a career in something do weigh up the benefits and the holidays and things like that. How does that work?
The holiday is good. I'd say the only thing is we obviously work Saturday mornings, because you can't give the horses too many days off. But you still get Saturday evening, Sunday off. We do 1 in 3 weekends, but some places are every other. Obviously every yard is different. I know some yards that have an entire week of afternoons off. But it just depends on the yard, and I think that it's really important to find a yard that you actually fit in and that you like.
And what's your favourite thing about your role at the moment?
I'd have to say the horses, mostly just because you can see how they progress, and it's really nice watching some of the ones that maybe weren't quite up to scratch last year. We've had a few come in that they've gone and had a holiday and they're now coming back into work and they've grown a bit, or they look like they've gotten a bit better or something like that, and yeah, that's really fulfilling.
Gareth, talk to us about a day in your life, what that looks like.
So I'll ride out in the morning. If I'm available, I normally do 2 or 3 lots before I go racing, depending if where I'm racing, what time I'm leaving, who's it for. Because as I said, I work for a lot of different people at the moment, which is good. I really enjoy it. So I ride maybe 2 lots until 8 or 9 o'clock, and I go home, quick change, and then go drive to the races. If I got a jockey, obviously we'll have to be there by a certain time, or a trainer, or if it's in a horse box, depending what time of the race is, depends how we get there, how far it is, if we're overnight. And then we'll have a day at the races, saddle up, check everything's running smoothly, speak to the owners, liaise with the jockeys and the trainer or whoever's on the phone who can make it to the races, and we get back maybe 6-7 o'clock on average. That can change massively depending if you're at Kempton 9 o'clock at night. So that's and every day is different for me at the moment, which is one thing I really enjoy about what I'm doing. I'm not riding out 3 lots every day. I'm not going racing every day. I'm sometimes doing this, sometimes doing that. And for me personally, it's great. I can be a bit flexible with what I do. I can do what I want to do, basically. Do the things I enjoy doing, as opposed to having to do some good things with some bad things. As certain jobs are, I can pick 90% good things.
That's brilliant. I'm sure you feel more in control of your own schedule as well, to an extent.
It's great. Like I said, if I don't want to do it, I don't have to. I do because we all have to make a living. And I work for some good people, and I like to keep my reputation going as well. But I do have flexibility, so if I do want a day off, I can say no thanks.
I'm off.
Yeah.
See you later. In terms of the travelling, does that get a bit tedious, or is that one of your favourite things about the role?
I love the travelling. I've loved being a travelling groom I've done it for maybe 7 or 8 years full time, and I loved every day of it. It's so much fun. I got to go to so many places. I met so many people. You can make money doing it with the overtime, which is obviously a big positive. But I really, really enjoyed it. It's not for everybody. You're away from home a lot. It is long hours. Sometimes I'm cleaning bridles and tack at 10, 11 o'clock at night instead of going home because I need to get all ready for the next day. But when you go to the big meetings and you take the nice winners, it's all worth it, So I personally love it, but I can see how it may not suit everybody.
Going back then to your younger days, when you used to go to the shows and you fell in love with riding and the races, I'm sure that your family were taking you, am I right?
Absolutely, yeah. My mother used to take me. She's always had a good interest in racing. And it went from there. She'd ask me, where would I like to go for my birthday? I said, we'll go to Sandown. Well, she was happy, I was happy, and that was that.
So were all your family supportive when you made the choice at 16 to go into this industry?
Absolutely. They weren't necessarily agreeing, but they were very supportive. They never tried to change my mind. I remember one of the first things I ever did was work experience in Epsom. Obviously we had to be in at 6 o'clock, and it was about half an hour from my house. It wasn't awful. My mother was up every day getting me out of bed. Come on, Gareth, we're going to take you to Epsom for 2 weeks straight, and then on weekends, and multiple times since. So from that side of it, she was great for me, and the rest of the family have an interest, and they're not really into racing at all. So it's, when I talk to them about it, they're a bit oblivious to what I mean. But as long as I'm happy and enjoying it, then that's all that matters,
So you said there that your family were supportive. Your mother in particular would wake you up in the mornings and get you ready. But you also mentioned that they weren't always agreeing, your family. What did you mean by that, Gareth?
Look, it's no secret that becoming a successful jockey isn't the easiest career path to take in the world. Only the very best make it to the top. And I think they're probably just more concerned that I maybe didn't have anything to fall back on as such. What about if it didn't work out? What about if I didn't like the industry? Where am I going to go at 17, 18 or older if I have a change of heart? Luckily, I'm 32 and I'm still here, and I love what I do. So I'd like to think this is probably me for a while now. But I think that's probably their biggest worry in case I didn't make a career out of it.
And that can be a big concern for parents and carers. I mean, if young people maybe decide, I don't want to go to university, some parents can flip out about it because they think, oh no, you've got to do that. So what would you say to someone who, if their family is super against what they want to do, what would your advice be, Gareth?
I know plenty of people who have done exactly that. They've gone to university, got their degrees, and then they've come into racing. So even if their degrees have nothing to do with the industry, they have it to fall back on if they do have a change of heart. Obviously nowadays you've got a lot of these agriculture colleges that do a lot more racing-based degrees as well. So a lot of people go to them, to Cirencester or other places, and then come into the industry from that. So not only do they have a relevant degree behind them, they have the experience of uni, and now they can bring it forward into the racing yard and into the industry.
But say a young person didn't want to go to university, they wanted to follow in the footsteps that you've kind of told us about today, and their parents were totally against them doing that. What advice would you give that person?
I mean, personally, I'd do what I wanted to do, but that's just me. I understand not everybody is able to do that, but if you want to do it, you got to do it.
I think that's solid advice. That's solid advice. Amelie, obviously your family were very horsey. Your nan had her horse that you used to ride. How were your family when you told them what you wanted to do?
Well, both my parents aren't actually very horsey. My nan is, and sort of further back on my mum's side is. But both my parents aren't. So, they were really supportive. They used to take me to riding lessons and everything like that. But they sort of told me, you've got to find a way to make money and actually have a career. Because they sort of thought just going into show jumping and everything was a little bit unstable in terms of making a profit out of it. Whereas in racing, I think because it has structure and it's more regulated, it's a lot easier to actually make a living out of it. But they were really supportive. I did end up going and doing my A-levels. I didn't go to the racing school until I was 19, nearly 20. But that was purely because at that point I wanted to go to uni. I think I still would have done my A-levels, even if I hadn't, just so that, as you say, you have something to fall back on, even if I had wanted to go to university. My dad did want me to go to university. I actually went and looked at Hartpury University, and he was sort of pushing me to go towards that. And then I took him to the racing school, and that was, I think, what really changed his mind about it.
Do you think that's because he saw how positive and happy you were there? Or do you think there was something else that made him think, oh, she can do this?
Yes, but I also think that he saw the facilities and he saw the structure of it and how it's not just college, it is setting you up into a job in the industry. You don't, like, when you come out of the British Racing School and the National Racing College, they put you into a job. So you don't have to go and look for a job by yourself. They will put you into one, and then you already have the experience that you can go on to another job.
You don't get that in a lot of industries.
No, not at all.
Talk to us more about these facilities that you mentioned.
They have fantastic riding facilities. So they have a massive indoor arena where you learn at the very start to ride, and it is huge. You can cant around it and everything, which is really great tool for the people that haven't ridden before, because it gives them a really safe enclosed space to learn. They have the outdoor arena, which is the next step, and that's also really, really big. Then they have a round canter, and then from there you progress onto the straight canter. But they also have riding simulators. They have barns full of horses that are for different abilities and everything. They have gyms. They have after your riding and everything classes. So they have like cooking classes, sewing classes. I learned how to change a tyre on a car, everything. Like, they really do try and set you up.
For when you switch transport from horses to cars.
Yeah, basically.
Which isn't often, is it?
No.
And Gareth, tell us about the facilities where you studied.
So I was at the National Horse Racing College back in 2006, and I think from what I hear they've only improved since I was there. It was outstanding back then. They have the round canter, the straight canters, the indoor schools, the wide variety of horses for all abilities, similar to what Amelie was just saying. And yeah, it's like she said, they look after you, they help you, they bring you on, and there's nothing that they can't help you with. And I think as the industry and the world progresses and moves forward, they only keep offering more courses and different variety of areas for different levels, for ground-based staff, for riding staff, for coaching, for instructors, whether it's a first aid course or a leadership course. There's so many more avenues and training opportunities that are available even now than 10 years ago.
So obviously you're both happy right now with what you're doing, but I want to talk about challenges because we all face them, and I'm sure that during your training you have come across those times. So Amelie, whilst doing your apprenticeship, which you're still doing, have you faced any challenges and how have you overcome them?
I think the main one right from the start was like moving away from home. The British Racing School try and place you within an hour and a half of where your home is, but I decided that I wanted to move to Newmarket, and I was old enough that they sort of went, yeah, that's fine, and they placed me within Newmarket, and I managed to find a job with accommodation and everything. But yeah, moving away from home and being away from home and not seeing your family, because I went during COVID as well, not seeing your family for a while was hard.
So how far are you from your family now?
I'm about 2-3 hour drive.
You mentioned accommodation. Is that unusual to find a job with accommodation, and was there support with finding that?
So the racing school put me in a job that had accommodation on site. They won't place somebody in a job where they don't have accommodation on site or the ability to travel to their job. purely because, especially if they're placing 16-year-olds, it's really not fair to expect them to move and then have to find a place. So they'll always try and move you on site. So I didn't actually have to find accommodation. They found it for me. But yeah.
That's brilliant, because finding accommodation can be extremely stressful, especially if you're starting something new. Gareth, a challenge that you faced and how you overcame it.
People used to put you down quite a lot, you know, and they would shut the doors because I wasn't good enough and I wasn't a natural, etc. So from that side of things, I mean, somebody told me to go and work in the bookies one day because I wasn't very good. However, I kept going and kept learning and kept doing my thing, and I came through, and I showed everybody that they were wrong.
So that was because you didn't have that riding experience that others had?
I think that was a lot of it. It has to play a big part, doesn't it? You know, I was fresh out of school, I didn't know a thing. And not that they didn't have patience for me, I probably wasn't the best 16-year-old they've ever seen, you know, I can't deny that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They were probably right at the time, but the fact is, like I said, I did it because I loved it, and I kept going, I kept learning, and I kept trying, and I'm still doing it all these years later.
So it sounds to me that one of the key qualities someone would need to have if they didn't have that riding experience is resilience.
Absolutely. This industry is amazing, but it's a lifestyle. It's not a 9-to-5 job where you go in at 9 and you leave at 5 and you forget about it on the weekends. My whole life has been around this industry, and I love it. It's great. I wouldn't change it for the world. But you do have to be tough. You know, it's not easy. Like we were saying, 6 o'clock in the morning. This morning was a prime example. It was one of the coldest mornings we've had for a long time. But we have to get out. We have to go and do it because we have to. One, we have the job to do. 2, we have to make our money, and 3, the horses need to be cared for and exercised. It's not their fault it's cold.
How did you make the adjustment from, I mean, obviously you were 16, so maybe you didn't have previous work experience, but going from being 16 at school to your whole life is devoted to this industry, how difficult was that?
One thing is there's a lot of people come into it at that age, so it's not as if you're going to be the only youngster there and everyone else is a lot older and know what they're doing. There's a lot of you in the same boat. You'll come together as friends and you make a lot of friends and you'll make lifelong friends. But you have the people around you as well, so it's not just you and a big industry and one big horse. You know, you have the support of your employers or your friends or your colleagues. So yeah, that's one thing I would say.
Is there anything to add to that, Amelie, about kind of working in this industry where you do have to put your all into it?
Yeah, especially, like I said before, you work weekends and stuff like that, so you don't get a lot of time where you're not seeing a horse. Like, obviously, you know, if you're working in the yard full-time like I do, you get a gap in the middle so you can go home and do whatever you want and afterwards. But yeah, if you're working weekends and stuff like that, you know, you're working Saturday mornings, so you get Saturday afternoons and Sundays off. But honestly, it doesn't feel like a lot. But it is really rewarding.
And to end the podcast today, I want to hear one word, or I'll let you have a sentence to describe your experience training for this industry. Gareth?
My favourite thing about the industry is the fact it can take to so many different places all over the world. I've been to I don't know how many countries, all because of this industry, and I don't know another job that would do the same. I certainly don't have any friends that have been to as many places as I have with their work and through their work.
And of course the training unlocked that for you.
Absolutely. If you can ride a horse, you'll get a job anywhere in the world. And it opens so many doors, you meet so many people and so many new experiences. Going from one place to see how they do it in one place to another, and it's all part of experience. And I use what I've learned over the past 15 years in different countries on a daily basis.
And Amelie, you used the word rewarding a little while ago, and I love that because that it's really heartfelt and emotional in what you're doing. You're very passionate about what you're doing. But tell me, what was your favourite thing about the training, or is, because you're still doing it?
I'd say it's definitely eye-opening. I'd say, you know, you go to the races and you just think, oh, it's easy. The horses just turn up and they run. And working in it, you see how many different careers that it can take you in. And even if you don't want to be around horses, so you could get a job as a secretary at the British Horse Racing Authority, and you're still involved in race day that way.
Amelie and Gareth, thank you both so much for sharing your stories and journeys today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening or watching the Race to Your Career podcast, brought to you by the British Horse Racing Authority. Make sure you head down to the description where there's plenty more information and helpful links. And don't forget to listen or watch the rest of season 1.